Hi everyone, so we're going to continue with inequalities. Today we're going to be working on an 8th grade standard, which is multi-step inequalities, and then page 29 for me. Okay, so we're just going to work through 4 different multi-step inequalities. The hardest part with this is just going to be remembering how to solve equations and the order in which things need to happen in order to isolate the variable. And then we still have our rule, which is when you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip the sign. So that is the only difference between regular equations and inequalities is the sign flipping. Otherwise, they're absolutely identical. So first problem is 4x plus 4 is less than or equal to 9x plus 8. So in our other problems that we've done with 1-step and 2-step, the first move was you didn't really get to choose what it was. It was always the exact same thing. Whereas here, since we have just numbers on both sides and then we have variables on both sides, we can choose whether or not we want to get, if we want to subtract 4 or subtract 8 or subtract 4 or subtract 9, like we can kind of choose how we want to solve this problem. Regardless of the order, you're still going to get the same answer. So if when you see this problem you thought, oh, I would have done it a different way, that's fine as long as we get the same answer. The way kind of that you solve these, for the most part, can kind of be up to you. So I always like to first get rid of my just values, keep my x's around, and get rid of these first, or at least move them to one side, and then move my x's to one side. Again, if you like it in a different order, that's fine. So I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides, and now I have 4x less than or equal to 9x plus 4. Okay, so now I want to get all my x's on one side. So I'm going to subtract 9x from both sides, even though you might be thinking, oh, subtract 4x and a positive number, but then we have nothing over here and we can't really have that. We'd have to move it back anyways. And so here, that cancels out, and we get negative 5x is less than or equal to 4. So now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 5. And since I'm dividing by a negative, my sign's going to flip. So now I have x, and it was less than, now it's going to be greater than or equal to negative 4/5. And we can just leave it as a fraction. We don't need to convert it to a decimal. And then it's already in its simplest form, so we don't even need to think about reducing it. Okay, problem 2. Negative 32c plus 12 is less than or equal to negative 66c minus 16. So again, you could choose to subtract 12 from both sides, or add 16, or plus 30, or plus 66 to both sides, or plus 32. It's up to you what you want to do first. I'm going to start and I'm going to add 16 to both sides. And now I have negative 32c plus 28 is less than or equal to negative 66c. So now I need to get all my c's on one side, so I'm going to add 32c to both sides. That cancels, and now I'm left with 28 is less than or equal to, and then here when I subtract, I get negative 34c. So now it's a 1-step inequality. Here it was 2 steps, now it's 1 step. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 34. And I get, remember I have to flip the sign, so I get negative 28 over 34. Here this was less than, so now I'm going to switch it so it looks greater than C. And then up here, when I got my fraction, when I divided, I was done. That's not the case here because this can be reduced. So I see right away that 2 is a factor of both of these numbers. So I'm going to divide them both by 2. And I get 14. Negative 14 over 17 is less than or equal to C as my final answer. So really with these ones, there's just one more step. You can almost think about it. It's like a 3-step inequality or 4-step inequality instead of a 2-step or 1-step. But once you can get past that first hurdle of how do you start this, it's the same as what we've been doing so far. Okay, next problem. Is negative 38d minus 57 is greater than or equal to negative 19d plus 76. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, again, I prefer just to start with the numbers. You can start with the variables. I'm going to add 57 to both sides. And that leaves me with negative 38d is greater than or equal to negative 19d plus 133. Okay, so now I'm going to add 19 to both sides. Okay, and so here I get negative 19d is greater than or equal to 133. Okay, so now I'm going to divide both sides by 19, or negative 19, sorry. And I get d. I have to flip my sign. It's greater than, or sorry, it's less than or equal to. It was greater than, now it's less than or equal to. And then I solved this problem earlier today, so I just know off the top of my head that 133 divided by 19 is negative 7. Obviously, no one knows this off the top of their head, so feel free when you're solving these, when you get to the end, to use a calculator to figure out if it's a whole number or if I can just leave it as a fraction. Okay, last one. Negative 23d plus 81 is less than or equal to negative 98d plus 1. Okay, so here, you know what, just for fun, let's solve this a different way. So let's start with the variables. I'm going to add 98d to both sides. And that gives me 75d plus 81 is less than or equal to 1. So now I'm going to subtract 81 from both sides, and I get 75 is less than or equal to negative 80. Oops, 75d, my bad. So now, since I'm dividing this time by a positive, my sign's going to stay less than or equal to. So I'm going to divide both sides by 75. I get d is less than or equal to negative 80 over 75. I can see both of these right away can be divided by 5. So I can reduce this, and I get d is less than or equal to negative 16 over 15 as my final answer. And if you want to, you can convert that to a mixed number, or you can leave it as an improper fraction. So when you're doing multi-step, and we'll do a couple more of these tomorrow as practice, you just have to identify, you know, what do you want to shuffle around first, and then it just becomes a 2-step or 1-step equation or inequality from there.